Kymm, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
I'm really happy to be here. I think this is my first official podcast.
Oh, good. I'm glad it could be with me.
Great.
As I said to you a few minutes ago, I love watching your social media pages. They're really fun, and you're doing so many different things. So I'd love for you to get started by telling people a little bit about yourself, a little bit about who you are and what your business
Sure.
is all about.
So I guess the best story to tell is like how we ended up here.
Hmm.
Like what are
That's a
we
good
doing?
one.
So I was in marketing and graphic design for 15 years.
Hmm.
I joined a company. I helped them reorganize it and simplify it and create automated processes. And once I got them all set up and trained their employees, they laid me off.
Oh, nice. How
Which was
thoughtful.
actually like at the time, Crosby was working a sweet fab job. He was getting paid really good money with benefits. Our youngest was not quite 3 years old. And it was like, sweet, I get to be a stay-at-home mom. I was like, this is gonna be awesome. Like I get to relax. And so in my spare time, I started refinishing furniture and
Hmm.
flipping it and selling it on social media, and then it just took off. So the first thing that I did that I sold for real money was a chair that had a floral print on the front and black and white polka dots on the back. And Crosby's like, "You're never gonna sell that thing. It looks insane. Nobody wants it." And it sold in 4 minutes
Oh,
for
wow.
$475. And I was like, "Go find me every wingback chair you can find. Like this is what I'm gonna do now." Um, so we started like really picking up. Well, I was able to use all of my graphic design and marketing knowledge to sort of solidify our brand, which it
Right.
started off kind of slow, and our brand has had some changes like over the course of the past 5 years. But social media and everything came very natural to me because it was something that I was doing anyways. I
Right.
first I first started using Facebook back in 2007. I started a roller derby league in Flint, and Facebook was the medium that I used to market that. And at the time, I think
Okay.
of everyone I knew, I was the only person who was using social media as a means to market to people. And
Wow.
like at the time, you had to be in college to get on Facebook. So I was attending University of Michigan. So I found a real value in using social media to reach as many people as possible. Of course, I was very spammy when I did it. No, I didn't know anything about it. So we, as a kid growing up, I was always creative. I started sewing when I was like 6, and um, taking stuff apart and putting it back together. And it sort of, I've always tried to make things. And so when I tried to do it as a hobby, it picked up and I got better at it. People started taking notice. So we
Okay.
first originally started just like dealing with people on Facebook, like picking up jobs for them. And eventually we started doing stuff for commercial spaces, like building out custom booths. And
Right.
now we work with like interior designers and architects and other contractors.
Okay. So what if someone were to say, what is your business right now? Is
So
there a short answer?
yeah, then it's funny because like when you look at it, everyone's always like, "What do you do? Like, what is it you do?" So we've shortened it to we make custom furniture and home decor fabrications out of new and recycled materials.
Okay. All right.
So we're technically not furniture restorers because what we do to furniture is not restoring them to their natural glory, but we do furniture restoration. We rebuild stuff from the ground up. Crosby's a metal and wood fabricator, so he's done that. He did that for 8 years before we started doing this, and he went to school for it. So he sort of just brought his skills to the table. In fact, he quit his job to pull staples for me. That was the original plan. So I got so busy, and he was so mad that I was like making money from home. He's like, I want to work from home too. And he's like, maybe I can quit, help you so we can turn over furniture faster. And then maybe I can like put some stuff up on Craigslist and pick up some metal jobs along the way. And it was only 5 months after he quit his job that we had to get into our first brick and mortar. So before we were working right out of our garage in our dining room. Our kids
Mhm.
had to wear shoes full time because there were like tacks and staples and everything everywhere. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. I have a picture that I share like every year or so, especially on the anniversary when it comes up, is like furniture stacked to the ceiling in my dining room. And I'm just like, I cannot wait until I can live in this house. And I like don't have to look at this. I can just like leave it at work and I can just live
Right.
in my house. So it's
So
crazy.
we're going to put the recording of this on YouTube. Anyone who's watching can see there's a warehouse behind you now.
Yeah. Oh, you can see everything
Yeah, I
behind me.
can.
Yeah. Let me give you, I'll take a little spin around so you can see. I'll turn in a
Okay.
circle. So our first brick and mortar was 3,500 square feet. It was basically just kind of a large garage. But we grew quickly in the first 2 years and we needed more space. So this space that we're in now is 11,000 square feet.
Okay.
And this year we're ready to grow out of it. So I'll show
Wow.
you, I'll just take a little spin. So the shelves behind me, you can see all of my collection of furniture
Mhm.
that we have. And then I have some, it's also kind of a wreck in here right now. So some fabric display. My assistants are back here in the corner making
All
pillows.
working hard.
Yeah. And then, so behind me this way is our wood shop and our metal shop. So
Okay.
in our first space, him and I worked on wood, metal, and upholstery all in the same room. It was a nightmare.
I was going to say that sounds really messy.
Oh, it was very messy and it was terrifying. I've got a velvet chair once that was white velvet, and I'm just like,
Oh,
this isn't even gonna make it out of here
yeah,
alive.
right.
We did manage though. He wasn't allowed to work that week.
So, Kymm, I love when we find something that we love and we can build a business from it.
Mhm.
Was this deliberate for you in terms of, did you think of it as a business or were you really
Not
thinking,
at first.
okay,
Not at first. So let me tell you, it's transformed into something that we never saw coming too. So even
okay,
when we were like, okay, let's do this as a business. So like I said, it started off as a hobby, and then it turned into like everybody liked my stuff, so everybody wanted something custom. Or I would just like make him collect furniture out of the trash and then I would redo it and we put it up on Marketplace and people would buy it. But every time I put something up, it was like that, it was gone like that. And I'm just like, what is happening?
yeah,
Like, what, why is this happening? So we thought we were going to go into business just making custom furniture from flips, like from
okay,
trash. And people really loved see like videos of us pulling furniture out of the trash, or like the elapsed time videos of us tearing it apart and like putting it back together. The process is what people really like to watch, and so that's sort of, we've sort of stuck to that theme. So we like to
okay,
people to see what goes into what it is that we do, and we also teach workshops too, and we will share the processes of our students. People, I mean, I guess people like the story behind it and they really like to see the process of the
hmm,
whole thing. So it transformed into, like, you know, started as a hobby, transformed into making products that we would sell. And now 99% of everything we do is on commission. So
okay.
we get hired to do build outs in restaurants or hotels. Like we're doing LA Insurance Agency this year. So we never, you know, we never expected it at all.
One of the things that I find fascinating about what you do with found furniture, and I know there are a few other people who do this, you create something that you love and somebody else loves it. And that's like, for someone like me, I can't just make a window treatment and hope somebody likes it and they'll buy it off of Etsy
I mean,
or
you
my website.
can.
I can, but it may not fit and it may not, but I mean, a chair can fit in many different
Mhm.
spots. But I've interviewed a few upholsterers who have their own style. Ragna Smith has a really
Yeah.
beautiful,
Oh
uh,
my gosh. She's
her
wild. She was
aesthetic
one of the
is
first upholsterers I started following. Yeah.
okay. So her aesthetic under Felix Hart is very bright and colorful and beautiful. It's not everybody's taste.
Right.
And yet she has the same kind of problem that you do. She finishes something and people want it. So my question is really about, how did you decide what to do in the beginning when you didn't have a client that you were working for, or you didn't
Yeah.
have an idea of what someone might want?
So for me in the beginning, money wasn't a factor. So I didn't really care if people liked it. You know, like I was
Okay.
just like, I was really making it for fun and then putting it out there and seeing if people liked it.
Okay.
And then came the and I don't think I've ever really made anything super vanilla. Like I
Okay.
like I mean, my stuff is like contemporary and like new and like can fit into other spaces, but I think like people come to us for our design
I
style
was going to
and
say
for
it's
what it is that we
unique and very particular to you and your brand.
one of the things that we tried to like Crosby was always like, no one's gonna buy it. That looks insane. Like you're crazy. Um, but in my marketing experience, I am able to actually target people with similar interests, so that when I put an ad out there, or even like if I word things a certain way, we don't spend a lot of money in advertising.
Mhm.
So like when you word things a certain way, you know it's going to click in someone's head, and or a certain group of people are going to stay liking it or loving it, and then their friends are going to start liking it and loving it, and it's actually going to expand our audience to people who are familiar with this, like
Right.
the Bernie fence posting that we just made out of metal.
Yes.
More than 50,000 people like engaged with the post. So
Wow.
yeah, it was
Wow.
crazy. And we didn't sell 50,000, unfortunately. That would have been fun,
That would
wouldn't
have
it?
been very nice.
But it did bring awareness to our brand. And
Right.
so I think everything that we put out there is very intentional. The way things are framed, the colors that are in the frame,
Mhm.
words that we use in the post to make sure that people see it and engage with it. We try to be like extremely intentional with our marketing so that we are reaching the right audience.
Okay. And
And then like
that
the people who love it give it wings.
right. And that you attribute that to your background, or have you learned even more since you've
For
started
sure.
this?
And I've learned even more. So back even when I was doing graphic design and marketing, businesses weren't leveraging social media for anything.
Okay.
They knew you have to have a social media, but they didn't know what to do with it and they didn't know how to use it. And to be honest, I didn't either. And all of that, the hard grade knowledge came from experimenting with it. I had a data analytics background, and once I learned how to read the analytics on Facebook and
Gotcha.
Instagram, then I was able to say, okay, so when I was doing emails, I use this analytics to do this to inform the next design or to make sure that emails get through to the inbox. So I just applied that knowledge to now what I know about social media. And a couple of years ago, I actually sat on a panel of experts for Facebook and talked about how we use such social media to
Okay.
leverage our brand.
Okay. Oh, well, and that doesn't surprise me that they asked you to do it, because I am so and we know that we talk about something and our phones and Facebook show it to us later on. If that's a surprise to
Yeah,
anybody, then they're not
right.
paying attention. Someone had mentioned your Instagram account, and I started to follow it. And then as soon as I interacted or liked something, like I started seeing your sponsor ads on Facebook, and I just saw you more frequently.
Yeah.
And I love that you include the process. As you said, people are fascinated by that.
It's the only thing people wanna see, really. Like, if you go down if you look at our Instagram, and I've convinced Crosby used to remove stuff from Instagram that he's like, "Oh, that doesn't look good anymore." I'm like, "No, you gotta keep it there because that's your growth." Like
Yeah.
that, every year or every day you get it, like, "A year ago, you did this from Instagram." And
Mhm.
for me, that's like looking into the past to inform your future, right? So when you look at the beginning of our Instagram, it's a hot mess. Like it doesn't look pretty or anything. We learned a little bit along the way what kind of information makes people engage more. If people aren't engaging with your posts, then they're basically invisible to anybody out there. So you
Right.
need people to engage with them. So we started learning the kind of work that informed it. So we went from doing like pictures or pictures of us working or even video of us working, and that was all fine and dandy. But now we make these short videos. Like the videos we make are anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds long, usually no longer than that, because
Okay.
people don't, unless it's like super enthralling, people will not spend that much time looking at our video.
Right.
So if I can get the gist of what it is we're doing out in 15 to 30 seconds, then it gets exciting for people because they're like, "Oh, this whole thing is just like, whoa," in front of their
Yes.
eyes. And so we will start our video. We actually start with a still. of the final product, because
Okay.
when designers come and look at our feed, they want to see a portfolio, right? They want to see what it is that we do.
Right.
So
Right.
the first thing that they see is that image. If they linger for more than a second, then the video just plays automatically, and then they're
Okay.
seeing the whole process. And we usually use trending music in the background, which is informed now by TikTok. So whatever music is trending on TikTok, we tend to use in our videos, and people recognize that from spending hours on TikTok, and it'll like pulls that into their brain, and then they tend to sit through the whole video, and then we'll put a series of images that they may have seen in the video and wanted to see longer along with that post, so that they
Okay.
can see the video and then they can scroll through the pictures and take a longer look at some of the detailed work.
Okay. So I want to back up for a second. How old are your kids?
So I have 3 girls. We have 3 girls. We have an 8-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an almost 17-year-old.
Okay. And I asked that for a particular reason. How do you find the time to do these things that you're doing?
Basically, we ignore that they exist.
They're
We're like,
free
"What
range
is?"
children.
Yeah, they're free range kids. No, but that is actually, so our kids have a lot of independence, and that started when I was a single mom with my first kid. My oldest is
Mhm.
mainly, so it's just her and I. And when she was real little, I started a roller derby league, and that was my first taste at my own independence and my own ability to make something like happen. Like I didn't grow up with parents or anyone. I didn't grow up in an area where people were just like, "You're never gonna be anything," but nobody was like, "You could do anything." Like,
Right.
they just didn't tell you, just like, you get up, you go to school, you get a job, you have kids, you get married, and then you die. Like, that was what everybody was expected to do. And so, when I started the roller derby league, because I was just like really wanted to wear fishnets and short skirts and beat people up, like, that was just like, "Oh shit, I can do stuff. Like, I'm good at doing stuff. Like, I can
Right.
do it." And so, um, when it was just me and Maylee, I had a group of like family and friends who helped sort of care for her, but she grew up in a roller rink. And I got pregnant with Evelyn while I was doing that. I have a picture of me 9 months pregnant on roller skates.
Oh my gosh, I would love
My
to see
husband's like,
that.
"I'm gonna kill you." But so when I got pregnant with her after she was born, like within a week, I was just like, "Here's the baby. I'm going back to roller derby." And so she would come, and then all of the rink moms or grandmas were there, and all of the adults that weren't skating would take care of the kids, and then we would go on about our day. But our little ones learned how to become independent early on. I like to do this thing with my bigger kids who ask me, "Mom, can you go get me this?" I'm like, "You are an adult-sized human. Like, you can go do this yourself." I'm just like, "I love you and I love to care for you, and I want to care for you, but these are things, skills you have to practice to be an adult, and I'd like you to work on that because I'm very busy and stressed out. And if you can just contribute a little bit, that would be awesome." But they are here at the shop actually now. All our kids they school from here. We have a tutor who works with them throughout the
Okay.
days to make sure that their technical issues are solved and everything. But we try to get them involved in as many projects as possible. You'll probably see videos of like Hazel or Evelyn, like making
Mhm.
stuff. They all want to have their own online stores, and they all dabble in trying to make things and sell them, which is good. Like,
Yeah.
that's how you know you're doing it right. But um it helps that they're pretty independent. Like,
Yeah. I
not that they're
love
not, that they're
I
needing.
love what you said though about, I love you and I love to care for you, but this is a skill you need to have.
Yeah,
And I know that, as I came from a family of, I was one of 9 where my mother did almost nothing for us because
I'm one of 10. Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
okay.
Yeah.
To having 2 children of my own where I felt like I wanted to show them that, that care until I realized that they wanted me to do everything for them. And it was like, oh no,
Right.
now I understand my mother better.
Yeah, I started working my first job when I was 14,
That's
and
how
when
old I
Maylee turned
was.
14, I'm like, "You gotta get a job." She's like, "I just wanna be a kid. Like, I just let me do kid stuff until I'm 18, and then I'll be an adult." And I'm like, "What at what point do you think this is gonna switch on for you? Like,
Right.
you think that you turn 18 and now you just know adult stuff? Like, no." Like, I'm like, "You don't need a full-time job, and you certainly don't need the money, but, like, it's important for you to get the job, learn how to interact with human beings in a public forum, and learn learn skills, like
Right.
learn what it is you like, what it is you don't like. But I'm very adamant. She works now, and all of the crap that I dealt with as a kid, like working jobs, working longer hours than I was supposed to, dealing with bosses trying to bully me into doing things. I'm just like, like this job means nothing to you. Like you don't have to keep it. If someone treats you disrespectfully, be like,
Right.
I'm a child. Like I don't need this from you. Like,
Right.
so
Right.
I'm just like, start them off early on. Don't put up with bullshit,
Yeah.
because knowing what I know now, like even when I was laid off, the company that laid me off, um, they laid me off because they were getting ready to sell the company and I was the highest paid designer. And so they wanted to, well, I don't know if I was the highest paid designer. This is my theory. So I trained a staff of designers to do my job. I automated all of their processes, and then I got laid off. Well, after they laid me off a month later, all those designers quit to go work for the same company. And I
Oh,
was like
wow.
drinking one night and emailed the CEO, and I was just like, looks like you're in a pickle. and and to me at that moment, I was just like, nobody knows what they're doing. Like these CEOs and everything, like they think they have it all together, and they really flaunt that title around like they know what they're doing and they're putting this together. I was like, but I transformed that company, and then I left, and then when everybody else left, they didn't know what to do. They ended up
Right.
hiring me back at 3 times the rate to carry them through to their sale. And I was working like 10 hours a week, which was really
Wow.
good when we first started our business, because that was like where most of our money was coming from. But
Right.
so that was like, I want to teach my kids, like, these people don't have anything over you. They're just human beings. And then when they
Yeah.
go home, they're crying because they work too fucking hard. And they just,
Right.
I don't know. I am
We'll just
cussing.
blur that
But
out. That's okay.
they're just as stressed as you. I watched the CEO go completely bald inside of 2 years because of the stress he was under. And now I know as a business owner what that means. And
Right.
now I know, like, you have no place to make someone feel that way. And it's not productive to a work environment either, right? You get a high
Right.
turnover employees when you're just a jerk to them and you don't value their input or their contribution to the business. So
Right. And as a parent of daughters, I think it's also really important that they understand raising children, especially daughters who don't take any crap from anybody, is challenging. And then when they don't take any crap from you, then that kind of is like, all right, I succeeded. Now I have to deal with it.
it's
But
funny you bring that up, because they bring that up to me. They'll get mouthy and stuff, and they'll be like, I don't have to do this. I'm like, listen, girl, we're not in that kind of relationship yet. Like, we will be one day. Today's not that day. Carry on.
I'm still paying the bills. You're still doing what I tell you to
As
do.
long as I'm the sustenance of your life, like, you're gonna just have to listen to my
Yeah.
advice.
So I love that they are there and seeing you, because I think that one of the things, you know, I chose to leave the job that I had to stay home, was home for a full maybe 3 weeks when I realized I was bored out of my mind and had to do something with myself. But I also used to worry about my daughters thinking that staying at home was their only option because it's what they saw with me. And I
Right.
didn't realize what they were seeing from the business I was running in the beginning. We've had conversations about it now. They're in their 20s and early 30s. So we can talk about it now, but it was something that I was concerned about, that I wanted them to see a strong role model, but that my choice was to be home with them. It just also wasn't the only thing I wanted to do.
So what do they say about that now in their 20s and 30s?
It's interesting because they know how hard I worked, but they also know that I didn't have a boss, and that sometimes that was awesome and sometimes that was really challenging.
Yeah.
And my older daughter is a social worker, and she has said uh, she has some independence in her job, but she said if I didn't have my boss to keep me on track with things, that would be a problem. And she said, I don't know how you do that. And it
Early
is a
on in the
problem.
early on in the first couple years, at any point I was ready to drop this whole business and go back to work. I'm just like, it is so much easier to work for somebody. And now with all the skills and everything I have, I think I could walk into any place and get any job. Also, I have an attitude of like, you're no better than me than I am. So
And I think that's real. No, I really think that's important because, and I'm from a different generation than you are. I was raised really to be quieter and fine and not put up too much of a stink, as my mother used to say, um, fortunately, I didn't listen to everything she taught me.
Right.
But and I think that has changed in the next couple of generations, but I think there's still a lot of messages out there for women to be quiet.
Mhm.
And it's an important balance for ourselves, that we know when to speak up for ourselves. We know as wives and mothers, sometimes we just need to keep the peace and get through the day. And then we speak up later and say what we want to say. But I really think it's important that our daughters have us as role models and see that things can be done. And that, as you said, no one's better than I am. And
Yeah.
what type of work you do does not define whether or not you are a good person.
Yeah, I just remember the stress, like, of calling in sick because my kids were sick, and the
Mhm.
amount of guilt that they would. It wasn't like, invisible guilt, like, it wasn't just me feeling the guilt, like, they really, really make you feel bad for
Right.
not being there, and I honestly, I think COVID's gonna change all of that.
Yes. Yes.
Because, like, now it's like, "If I come to sick, Imma kill you half your family." But but
You
it's,
really don't want me there.
yeah, and I just remember, like, what that felt like, and I know they're under pressure too. So I have a different perspective now. So I have an appreciation for the amount of stress that they were under to run their business,
Mhm.
because we're at the point right now where we could grow, we could hire people, but like it could go south very quickly, and then it would just, like, we would have nothing. And so we have to be prepared to take that risk, and we're not
Mhm.
quite at that point yet.
Okay.
But watching people who you think are here in life, and you're here, from the perspective I am now, like, I see us all at this level,
Okay.
and I'm just like, I try to instill that in my children. My daughter, is part of a dance team, and in the first year that she was there, it was that real toxic
Mhm.
cheerleader environment type deal, and that's why I never did it as a kid. I never identified like that. I was bullied all the time, so, I couldn't even imagine putting myself in that. And
Right.
she's a real shy, sensitive kid, and after that first year, she wasn't sure she was gonna do it because the coach herself seemed to be living vicariously through, her high school students, as
Gotcha.
though she was their age. And the next year, it started again like that, and Maylee wanted to quit. She's just like, "I just wanna quit." And I'm just like, "Why don't you say something?" I'm just like, "1, if you don't say something, they don't know how you feel. So
Right.
you can't walk out of there saying like, I I did this and I did that and they were still like this. So 1, say something. If it doesn't change, you need to go." And so she said something to her coach along the lines of like, "I will treat you with respect when you speak to me with respect." And
Wow.
mind, this is from a girl who, like, started her first day of 3rd grade throwing up because she was too afraid to go to school. And
Yeah.
so I was like, "Holy shit." And it
That's
changed the
okay.
whole dynamic of our dance group. So she set a precedent at that moment, and she started communicating that to the other members, and now the dance team itself is more supportive and positive, even including the coach. And it's
Okay.
just like, see, like, you can have an impact on that. And when you say something and it doesn't change your environment, leave. Like,
Yeah.
you're putting yourself through that. You don't have to be there. You don't have to
Right.
do it. And being a business owner, like, helps you sort of create that environment that you would want to be in.
Right, because we get to choose who we work with.
Yeah.
And when we decide who our ideal customer is, especially with custom work like you're
Mm.
doing, it is not the person who types into a local Facebook page. Just, can anyone recommend the what is a word I see all the time? Some people will say cheap,
Yeah.
reasonable, the
Yeah.
most reasonable custom window treatments. And
Yeah.
I just saw something on one of the upholsterers pages about that. And one of my brothers recently screenshotted a page and sent it to me. He said, "Hey, should I put your name in here?" I said, "Looking for affordable window treatments." I said, "Thank you so much. No,
No. Yeah.
please do not put my name in there." I
Yeah,
said,
we always tell people when they get estimates, they're always like, "I could buy new for cheaper." I'm like, "You definitely could, and
yeah,
you should." It's
yeah,
not gonna be custom work, and your furniture might not last as long as you like it, but, like, we can't compete with the internet. We can't compete with Walmart. We can't compete with Art Van. We're not here to do that sort of thing. We
right.
want to make custom. We want to make the stuff that brings us joy and looks cool on the internet when people see it. If I make something terrible for you, that's not doing anything for my business. Like, that doesn't help
Exactly.
me grow. So So yeah, we do. We always start off when people ask, "Hey, here's a picture of my blah. How much would you do that for?" I'm like, first, let me preface this by saying we cannot do it cheaper than you can buy new. And we never give an estimate without all of the details that we would need to make an estimate. Like we
Mhm.
can't, I made the mistake only one time of looking at what looked like an accent chair and giving an accent chair price. It ended up being a triple wide chair. Like it was a giant chair. And we raised the price. I was like, this is not what you said it was. And I should
Mhm.
have taken measurements. And so that was the last time we did that. Now we have a whole process that we go through for estimates to prepare the clients for the sticker shock that they're going to see
Right.
prior to seeing it. And we deal with a lot less rude people that way.
Okay.
When we come out of the gate, like this is probably not going to be what you expect, but here it is.
Right.
And then over the years, like I probably say it's been over 2 years since we've really had to deal with any of that because now
Okay.
the people who work with us full on expect. We now
Right.
people come to us and be like, I don't know if you do jobs this small, but would you consider doing this?
So
Which is
they're
nice.
not coming at it from a price point. They're coming at
Yeah,
it from a this is unique. And okay,
right.
so you've mentioned processes and procedures twice. So you're speaking to I'd love to say that I'm in love with those things. I'm not, but I'm working
Yeah,
on them in my own business. I think that sometimes as creative people, we like to think, oh, I don't need processes, or that's too right brain for me. What has it meant for you? I mean, you described being hired back by your former company because of
yeah,
setting all that up, but what is it like for you in your business to have the freedom to create?
right. So it's a two-part thing, right? One, we had to recognize the value of our services. Like we didn't know that early on. We were like, what
Okay.
are other people doing chairs for? What are other people making things for? And so we tried to like compete with that. But then we learned very early on, like it's sucking away our time. We're frustrated. We're not making deadlines. Like we're not making enough money to deal with
Hmm.
this. There were times where we were like, can we just quit and get real jobs now because this is just not worth it. So we had to create processes in order to establish what the value of our time was. And our
Okay.
skills and our expertise. And once we did that, we stopped bleeding money,
Okay.
which allowed us for more time to be creative.
Right.
so,
Right.
so when you're constantly thinking about keeping the roof over your head or making bills, it's really difficult to be creative because all you're thinking about is the next paycheck and you're living paycheck to paycheck. Now, to be clear, we're still living paycheck to paycheck, but that's because we put every additional penny that we have back into our business so that we can
Okay.
continue to grow.
Okay. And you've continued to grow from the time that you started it.
We triple, we triple in
Wow.
growth every year.
Wow. That's
Not in
huge.
employees, but in terms of the scale of the work that we do, our building size, uh, everything, it triples every year. So next steps, like we are hoping to get a bigger space. We offer the first shared workspace in our area. So we
Hmm.
have a couple other businesses that work here in our space for free in exchange for their services. So we have another company called Howard Family Designs. Michael, he works on his own. He does woodwork. We offer wood services before, but
Hmm.
in order for us to grow and hire an employee, like we didn't know how we were going to do it. But if we could bring in somebody else who is skilled at that already,
Yes.
they can grow their business. And she
Kim,
makes products that support Black people, like the.
Kim, I lost you for a minute there.
Oh, are you there?
It's my internet connection. I just
Oh,
got a notice about it. You were explaining about the woodworker, and then that's when
yeah.
you cut out. So
So
I
that's
didn't want
one
to
of the
miss
business.
anything.
So Michael's one of the businesses that comes in here. He does his work here, and he also does woodwork for us. So
Okay.
in exchange for the space, and he uses our tools too. So we have more advanced tools and stuff that
Wonderful.
he can. Yeah, and I mean, the wood space is not a huge part of what we do, so we don't spend a lot of time there. So it makes sense that someone can now get some use out of that space on a daily basis. And
Right.
then we have another company called Culture Vibes. My friend Maisha, she makes products that celebrate Black people. She makes like apparel and accessories, but she is very well versed in shipping and e-commerce and online sales. And as you know, we just started, we
Yes.
got a plasma table recently, so we're making products which we now have online and are doing regular sales, but don't have the, it's just Crosby and I, we don't have the time to do the shipping and all of that. So she
Right.
handles all of our shipping for us too, which we didn't
Awesome.
have to hire someone to do that. She came in and used the space. And that's unique to our area. We don't have shared workspace in our city. And as a person who sits on city council here in our city, I want to make sure that we provide opportunities for businesses and entrepreneurs to grow similar to what I did
Mhm.
without worrying about taking as big a risks as we had to take to
Okay.
get into this business. Because you work from home still, or you have your
I
own?
do. My workroom is in my entire basement.
So the first time we signed a lease, it was a 2-year lease, and then we had to sign a personal guarantee that in case we slipped up on the lease, that we would be held personally responsible. And our first building did go south with the landlord. Ended up being a terrible situation. There was a hole in our roof that never got fixed, and it got to a point where we just couldn't be there anymore. And in struggling to get in or out of that contract or get something done, we ended up going to court, and this guy tried to take our home. He tried to take our cars. He tried to take everything from us. And it was a nightmare. I mean, we went bankrupt. We were just like that's a huge risk to take. And
Yeah.
people don't realize, we were told about it when we went in, but we were like, this is, we got to do this. Like we either are in or we're out. So
Right.
we got to do this and try and make it work, or we're out. So it was, I don't think that small businesses can grow when they have to think about taking risks that big, and when they have to risk literally everything. So
Everything that they own. I think
we're
that's
trying
what
to make,
stops people.
it sure does that,
Yeah.
and the stress of actually running it. And when you
Yeah.
don't have that stress lingering over your head, it leaves a little bit more bandwidth for you to handle the rest of the stress that comes with running your business,
Right. Because it
keeping
is
your
not stress
clients.
free.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, our biggest fear is getting bad reviews. And we've had been late on projects. We've had to fix things. We've had to like refund money, and we're very fortunate to have kept a good relationship with our clients. And hopefully like make it a situation where everyone walks away happy. Like our biggest fear is just like bad reviews.
Well, and you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Kim, because I think that that's it seems to be a common trait among a lot of the people that I interview for the podcast, that we are perfectionists
Mhm.
and our reputation is very important to us. But it doesn't leave a lot of room for error,
Mhm.
and mistakes happen. They happen every day in our lives.
Oh, all the
And
time.
I mean, it's one of the questions that I ask. How do you handle a mistake? How do you handle what you consider a failure?
Yeah. So I remember the first time, so 3 months into moving into our brick and mortar, we moved into the brick and mortar after we got our first 2 commercial contracts. One of them was for $10,000, and we're like, never seen that much money before in
Yeah.
our lives. We're like, holy crap, we're gonna be rich. And then the other one was for $27,000. And we're
Wow.
just like, if we can keep this up, it's gonna be fine. But 3 months in, the $27,000 contract fell through. The project got started, but it went, and I'm like, how are we going to pay rent? Like, how are we
Mhm.
going to do any of this? I went into such a like downward spiral that I was just like, our lives are over. Like, how are we going to do any of this? And I heard a first month of rent was late. Like at this time that our first month's rent was going to be late, and we didn't even know how to call the guy and tell him it was going to be late. And it was just like, I felt like I was going to explode. I told Cross, I'm like, touch my hands. It's electricity, like just flowing through my body. Like, I'm going
Yeah.
to die today. Like, this is too much. And then the next day came and went, and nothing happened. We didn't get evicted. We didn't get kicked out. And I was like, okay, well, now I feel like I've reached this like higher level of being able to like deal with higher levels of stress. What do I do with that? Like, my world didn't end overnight like I thought. Well, how many
Right.
days until my world does end?
Yeah, right.
So then it was just like, became a like, okay, this is our problem. We know we got to make money to solve it. Like, what can we do? How much time do we have? Sorry, I get very teary eyed when I think about that day,
I can
because it was
imagine.
like a huge, it was like a, we've worked so hard on our brand, and everyone in the community knows who we are. And if we just fall like this, like, what is that going to say about
Yes.
us? And it was unfathomable. And now I'm just at a point where, like, one, if a bad review ruins us, we weren't that good to begin with. like, maybe you shouldn't be like thinking you're all that. I was like, but two, you can't make everybody happy. You
Yeah.
just can't do that. And you shouldn't have to like strive for that sort of expectation. So we set our boundaries now, even in dealing with clients, because we've had clients be like, well, I know you're a small business and you're living paycheck to paycheck, but this is what we expect. And now I will say to someone like that, you don't know me.
Right.
And how I live financially is none of your business. But like, this is what the service we're offering you, and this is as far as we're willing to go with it.
Right.
And if you're not like that, we're happy to write you off as a client.
Then we're not a good
That
fit.
is fine. We have more other clients, and we have 5 years of no bad reviews experience
Right.
behind us. So, and that's the thing. The fight for legitimacy in the beginning is like so hard, especially when you're working out of your living room or your
Yes.
garage, and people
Yes.
have to come pick up furniture from your driveway. Like, that's I've been through the toughest parts of that, and now I'm just like, I don't need to prove myself to anybody anymore. You like it or you don't like it,
Right.
and if there comes a time where most people don't like our stuff, then we'll know it's time to move on.
Right.
So that's kind of how we like, this is not a permanent thing to us.
Right.
This is like something fun that we're doing, and we're getting the most of it out of it, like while we're here. And we will continue to get the most. When we first moved into this bigger building, um it was a local business. The space wasn't even for lease, and we were in between that really bad lease and trying to get into a new space, and we didn't know what we are going to do or how we're going to pay for it. And the company that owned this building actually does a lot of philanthropic things for the city. And so I sat down with the CEO and was like, listen, here's what I know. This is my business. I don't have enough time to write you a business plan because I work 15 hours a day. I was like, but this is where we started. Here's where we are now. We've tripled in growth every year. I know if I have the space that I can make it work. And so he made an agreement with us to give us the space on a 6-month short-term lease, which I think would be amazing if more people did this for businesses, to give them little short-term leases to allow them to grow.
Right.
He was like, if it works out, you stay. If it doesn't work out, then you can move on. And nobody's really lost anything out of it. And now we're pushing 2 years in this
That's
space. And
awesome.
we didn't know if we were going to be able to grow into it. It was almost twice as much rent as our earlier space. And we were just like the same space, like, oh, this works.
So it's so funny. I've done all kinds of, SWOT analysis and things, and worked through a lot of business type things with different people. And I know enough about myself to know that I am risk averse. And I'm
uh,
listening to you and I'm literally like squirming in my seat, because you are not, you are not
no,
risk averse at all.
yeah. And I think that that comes from, so I grew up very poor. But my husband and I are from Flint originally. We've
Hmm.
never had money. My mother abandoned me here in the state when I was 16 by myself. And so I have been on constant survival mode since I was like a kid. I was fortunate enough to have a family take me in through high school, and even part of my adulthood. I had moved back in with them, and they really helped sort of build up my confidence.
Hmm.
We never had any money to work with. The only thing I've been able to take risks with is my time and my skills. So,
Okay.
like, if I have that to trade for something, then I'll do it. And so, a lot of what we do, a lot of what how we managed to be here is like bartering with different, like, with different risk factors. So,
Right.
we bought our first house on land contract. Like, we put $1,400 into it, and we had the land contract for 5 years. It allowed us to go from spending nearly $2,000 a month on rent to $438 a month on a house payment, which at the time, we bought the house, and 6 months later I got laid off. So like, so that was like perfect timing. And then at the end of that 5-year land contract, we had a deal. We could pay the lump sum of $69,000, or we could sell the house ourselves. We sold the house for twice of what we paid for it, and we walked away with $60,000, which we were able to invest in our business. And it
Okay.
was just like all these little opportunities that like people don't think of. People think they have to have money. You have to have money to do this. You have to have money to get started. You have to have a savings account. Um, I think I have $300 in my bank account, to be completely honest with you. But like, I learned that money isn't as real as people think it is. It's like your relationships with people, your skills and your time and what you're willing to put into it that can really turn stuff around. So I found, and my mom has always told me this, if it's a problem with money, it's not a real problem. So you just have to figure out different ways to solve it. And having to survive my whole life, like that's where my brain goes. Like
Right.
instantly, how else can I solve this problem?
Right. And you've been in the worst possible spot.
Every year of my life. There's something every year of my life where I'm just like, are we gonna make it through this? But I know
Yeah.
now, like I meditate a lot now too, which is extremely helpful.
I do
If you
too.
don't do it, I suggest you do it because like if it wasn't, it was meditation that brought me out of that one breakdown, like when we were gonna lose our first space. Like it was meditation that sort of, and I had just started doing it, but like brought me onto a level of just like, this is just an event that is happening right now. Like it's not you and
It's not your whole life.
it's not your whole life, and nothing is going to come crumbling down. It's just going to shift. If you lose the space, you have to go get a job. Well, great. You have a lot of experience, years of experience that
Right.
you can do
Right.
this now. And the legitimacy of starting your own business and all that. Like you're not a failure. And I
Right.
think that's why I really think that that's why small businesses fail so much is because people reach a certain level of stress where they're just like, I really don't think I can take on anymore. And so they tend to back away and they tend to move on to something that's a little bit less stressful, but they don't know if they break that wall. Like if you just break through that wall and see
Right.
what happens the next day, like you could do anything. So I spend my whole life breaking through walls.
So I ask the question often, have you ever thought about quitting? And you've already said multiple times that you
Yeah.
have. What stops you from quitting?
Um, the feeling that it's just not over yet.
Okay.
Like it just lingers. Like, is this it? Is it done? Am I done making furniture? I'm just like, I don't feel done. It doesn't feel, I don't know if you've ever had a bad relationship with like a bad romantic relationship where towards the end, you can just like,
Yeah.
like it's over. It's
Yeah.
over. You get that
Yeah.
feeling washes over you and you're just like, well,
It's time.
really sad and depressing, but it's time. And I just haven't felt that.
Hmm.
And so I guess until I feel that, I
Yeah. So
probably I probably won't quit.
in
But
spite of
but
the
now,
stress.
well, now the amount of stress that I've had to deal with through all this, and the meditation practices of coping with it, and the mechanisms that I've gained to be able to cope with this stress guides me through these moments now, right? So like
Okay.
now I get to a spot where a client is really pissed off and is threatening to take you to court and what are you gonna do? And now we're just like, okay, well, what happens? So you go to court and you have to deal with a judge, and the judge is gonna say this and that and that and the other, and you now you owe somebody money. Well, you don't have to pay that money day one. Like you don't owe it day one. You work on payment plans, you get it worked out. There's
Hmm.
a solution for everything, and nothing happens overnight. Like a lot
And
of
that's the
people,
worst case scenario. Yeah.
worst case scenario. So what are you going to do in a worst case scenario? So now my brain helps me step back, look at everything from a different perspective, and play a little chess game of like, okay, so if this happens, then what do you do? And if this
Right.
happens, then what do you do? And if you get a bad review, what do you do? Like you have a backup plan for everything. And that's probably the only instance in my life that I plan for anything. We fly by the seat of our pants. That's sort of like our motto.
Hmm.
We just sort of like take us where the wind carries us. And that's okay. I'm okay
And
with that.
and it's so fascinating to me because many of our stories have similarities in how we got started, and our businesses are different, but they're not totally unalike.
No.
But I am not a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person. So I love talking to someone who is, because I
My
feel like I
assistant,
can learn something from them.
my design assistant Heather worked for a bank previously, and the way we handle our financials in our business is like a nightmare.
I was going to
She's
say,
always just like, no, you need to do this and this. I'm just like, I'm not at the level I can do that, so we're just gonna have to work with what we got. But she's very organized and she's very detail oriented, and it's great to have her around because a lot of the things that I do have changed just having her looking over my shoulder. So we're like, she's learning how to do what I do from me. Like I'm the
right.
expert, but she's an expert in so many other things. And so that has adjusted, the way that I approach things because I'm always like, well, what would Heather say if I did this?
Right. Is she going to yell at me?
She's pointing at me right
Yeah.
now. She's like, you don't want to know what I would do. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So in how many people do you have working for you right now, aside from the people who use your space and give you time back?
So I have two design assistants who help me out with the day to day. They will work on cut lists and some sewing stuff. They're learning the processes as they go.
Hmm.
And then Crosby, from time to time, when we have big jobs that require a lot of metal fabrication, he'll bring in a side contractor to work with him too. We're
Okay.
this close. We're so close to being able to hire someone, but our income is not predictable yet. It's still
Hmm.
very like we know we're going to make enough money to like keep all the roofs over our heads and pay us and make sure that we can, take care of our kids, but we can't promise an employee that like they wouldn't have to wait a week until we get a paycheck to get paid. And I
Right,
just don't,
right.
I don't want to hire someone on that basis. I don't want them to wonder where their paycheck is going to come from.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So we have not, I've not asked a lot of the questions that I normally
Sorry,
ask,
women's
just
fault.
because, no, because it's been such a fascinating story. But we talked a lot about the stress. Would you consider that to be one of the biggest challenges of running your own business, or is there something else that you consider the biggest challenge?
Like I honestly think it's probably the only challenge of running your own business.
Okay.
Like the stress of meeting deadlines, the stress of being able to afford expensive materials.
Hmm.
When we're working from our home, we're dashing up to Joann Fabrics and Home Depot. Like that was the gist of it. You can't make quality products from Joann Fabrics and Home Depot. Although Joann still has great fabric. But it's always the stress. And it's whether or not you can hold onto all that stress and still do your job, because there
Hmm.
are days that we're paralyzed. And we worked on a job recently where we we pulled two all-nighters in a row. Crosby pulled three because it was mostly metal work. He pulled three all-nighters in a row, and we were like, the client was just like, you need to do this. And I can't, like, if there are clients watching this video, putting your contractor under duress is
Never smart.
not beneficial to your project,
No.
to their health, or to your working relationship.
Right.
It's not good. Like I have clients now that I won't work with because of the duress they put us under.
Right.
So when your client knows that you're putting in three overnights in a row, my husband got out of bed the one night after taking a 2-hour nap and collapsed to the floor, because that was like he was putting everything into making sure that this client was happy. And at the end of the day, they're not going to be happy.
Right.
They're going to be happy with anything. They think that they can have what they want when they want it, and they forget that you have dozens of other clients that you're working for at the same time.
Right.
And they don't care. And honestly, it's not their business. They don't need to care. That's nothing they have to deal with. But you have to decide at some point, like, how much stress do you think you can handle? And what are your coping mechanisms? And like, is it healthy for you? Is it healthy for your family? Is it healthy for the
Right.
people around you? Because when you are working at a level where the majority of your concentration is coping with stress, you can't function as a human being. So
Right.
that is definitely that's the biggest challenge.
Okay.
Like I said, money's not a problem for me. Like, not like we never have it, but I don't look at it as an issue because I'm resourceful and I am a survivor. And so I can figure out ways to get through stuff. But like stress coping is the number one thing. And there have been many times, even this year, that we've reached a point is like, this isn't fun anymore. Do we still want to do this? Like
Right.
and we're not doing it for fun either. Like I'll tell you.
Right. No, I mean, we
Really
start
funny.
these businesses for because it's fun and we think this is going to be great. But once we've established it as a business, it is not always fun.
Right. I really there's a lot of conversation going online in some of the circles that I follow now about people turning their hobbies into jobs and how terrible of an idea that is. And I think that's a really good point to make, because when
Yeah.
you get good at something and your friends and family want to buy it from you and they want to support you, and then you're just like, oh shit, I gotta do this full time now.
Yeah.
I'm a cusser. I
No,
really
it's
try.
okay. It's okay.
Um,
I ask the question when I'm interviewing someone whose primary business is sewing. I often ask them if they sew for pleasure, because that's why most of us got started. And
mhm,
it's no longer something that we do for pleasure, because we do it all day for work. And at the
right,
end of the day, especially if it's been a stressful day or something hasn't gone according to plan, then it's even harder.
right. Yeah, so I still do it for pleasure, sewing in particular, not
Okay.
furniture. I don't make my own furniture because my family will destroy it, and that will make me very sad. But my girls, so growing up for my kids' birthday, we always had themed birthdays, and I always made them a dress for their
Hmm.
birthday. But I made all the kids a dress for that birthday. So Maylee had a birthday, I'll make it 3 dresses.
Okay.
And they're very into cosplay and
Hmm.
themes, and so I really enjoy doing that. Like the last one I made was for Hazel. She had a Pee Wee's Playhouse slash Marvelous Mrs. Maisel birthday.
Oh my gosh, I would love to see pictures of
Oh, I'll tell
that.
you this. So her dress was it was a Pee Wee Playhouse dress, but I have you watched Marvelous Mrs.
Oh,
Maisel?
yes, I have.
So when she gets her first job at the makeup counter, she's wearing that gray dress with the big bow, and it's
Yes.
like 3/4 sleeves. So we made that dress in the same fabric as Pee Wee's suit, and she had a red bow.
I
And then we
love
made
it.
a chair that looked like Cherry that we took pictures of it in. It was great.
I
They're getting old
love
now,
it.
and they don't like themed birthdays as much as they used to.
Darn it.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know how many more we got up our sleeves, but it's been a lot of fun, like doing that for the kids.
I'm great. I'm so glad you get to do that and still get to do some of the sewing.
I do now, now to where I'm at right now, especially considering the amount of stress you get put under dealing with clients, like I will stop everything and I don't care how mad a client gets, like to do something for my brain to help like level set.
Yeah.
If I'm working on a project that is stressing me out, I find that I make more mistakes which end up putting us further behind. So
Yes.
I will drop and I will pick something off the shelf that I really want to be working on
Hmm.
instead, and I'll work on that instead.
Yeah.
Which is
There's
not great for client relationships all the time, but it's pretty good for my mental health. And if I'm gonna end up losing this job one day, I wanna make sure I take care of that brain first.
Yeah, I was going to say you can't lose your mind before you lose the job.
Amazing.
There's a woman in the window treatment industry, Ann K. Johnson, who wrote an article once in one of the industry magazines about 3 strikes and you're out. And the first time I read it, it was like, well, I can't stop. I have to get this job done.
Yeah.
And her premise was, if you've made 3 mistakes, get out because you're
Yeah.
going to make more than 3 more.
I gotta
And
read that article because that's my theory. 3 strikes.
I will
You're
send it
out.
to you. But I noticed that when I stopped pushing hard against her advice, it was the best advice I had ever gotten. Because when things are going wrong, and I'm a procrastinator, so I have to be careful that it's a balance of not like, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to go find something else to do. But sometimes you need a break from what you're doing and you need to take a breath. And as you said, I also meditate, and it's become a daily practice for me. And there are many times now that I thought, 5 years ago, I would have blown up over that one. Now I'm still, I'm not, it's not all unicorns and lollipops, but I'm handling things better. And I think that the meditation has a lot to do with it.
For sure. Absolutely.
Kymm, what would you say has been your biggest success?
Helping as many other people as I can through this process. So we bring
Love it.
in a lot of people who do what it is that I do are they take ownership in it. There's not a lot of upholsterers in our area.
Hmm.
So in the other upholsterers in our area are old white men. And they hold on to their secrets and they don't want the competition. And people think about this industry is being very competitive. And in my experience, I mean, we turn down jobs all the time. In my experience, there's enough work out here for everybody. So
Right.
I'm not worried about somebody else learning how to do what I do. So what I do is help people build confidence by teaching them what it is that they want to learn about what they do,
Hmm.
or bringing other businesses in and helping them grow without having to take risks. We host, before COVID, we hosted events that helped teach people about branding and social media. We held a really successful makers exhibition in our city, which originally was supposed to be a showcase of our students' work, but the majority of our students didn't finish their work. So we had like 5 chairs. I'm just like, well, we can't do that. So we took a vacant building in our city, which there's a large strip of our city that they're trying to turn into a downtown area, but we don't have any money, so it's not doing anything. And so there's a lot of vacant spaces. So we took the vacant space in the downtown area. They let us borrow it for the night. We called every maker we knew who made anything from paintings to furniture to like we had a menstrual artist come in and bring that. So wrap your head around that one.
That
But
one's
she was very
different.
successful. So we brought We brought all these artists in under the same roof. We didn't charge them a dime to bring their stuff in. We set it up like an art gallery style. We made it open and free to the public. We had food, and the brewery that was getting ready to open right next door, they weren't like legal yet, so they brought their home brew in and they served beer, and the wine place next door brought
Wow.
the wine and they served wine. Completely free event. Anyone in the city could come to it. We saw close to 300 people come through the doors. We sold more than $5,000 in artworks, and we raised $1,400 for the arts board at the
That's
same
so
time
great.
to really promote accessibility to arts in our area. So, and that cost me nothing. It cost me nothing to do it. It was just like
Right.
building relationships with people, saying, hey, we should get this going, and doing it. And so helping other people, I think, has been our biggest success, because we've been able to grow, but we've been able to bring people along with us, like
Okay.
dozens, like a lot of people. And I think that even with our competitors, I think that there's a respect for what it is that we do, because we are not bashing anybody else in the area who does what we do. We're
Right.
not dissuading people from going to. In fact, we send people to other metal fabricators and furniture makers all the time. I mean, we have another woodworker who works in our area who could easily just take all that wood business out from under our nose. But when you build relationships like that with people, like, you're looking out for each other. You're not
Right.
looking out to become the richest and the best and the blah. You're just like, you want to be good at what you do, and you want a name for yourself, and you want to grow and practice and get better at your skills. And so there's less undercutting, and I think that there's a lot more community involved when you do something like
I love that. I think that's fantastic. So we did talk a little bit in the beginning. How did you get started on TikTok?
that. So my kids introduced me to TikTok because they were on TikTok, and I want to make sure that it was like a safe space for them.
Right. Right.
It's not. But my kids are we'll call them old souls. So they know what to look for, and they come to me when they see inappropriateness. But at the time, it was just like I needed to be on there to see what they were seeing,
Right.
so I can make sure that they were safe. But then I get like sucked right in, and I coming from a background of marketing and social media, I knew, and it still is, TikTok was the wild west of content creation. And I knew at that time, not only was it going to be great for musicians to get their stuff out there, because you can put up to 1 minute clips of your music
Oh,
on there and
wow.
people will use it and share it, and it'll become trendy. And then, like, there are so many musicians who have made it big there. And I
Okay.
could see the potential for branding. So on TikTok, we don't do as well, but there's not a lot of people who do what we do on TikTok.
Hmm.
Mostly it's like there's a lot of artists and there's a lot of musicians, but I'm really trying to break through and figure out how it is we get our stuff to take off on TikTok.
Okay.
But what we do is we create our stuff on TikTok, and then we transfer that over to our other forms of social media, which people pick up from there. And because I know they're spending time on TikTok, they're listening to the music, and they're familiarizing themselves with that trends. It starts to drive traffic to our page that way. So
Okay.
I just knew the potential of TikTok, and it's still the wild west, and it's still, you can change the content that you see on TikTok in a matter of minutes. Like, because it's algorithm based, so it takes what it
Right.
thinks you like, and then it gives you that information. But you can change it. Like, you can search. Well, I heard bread talk was popular today, so you can search it, and next thing you know, all you're seeing is like bread talk and baked goods and like food stuff, and it's just like, it's so smart. It's just so freaking smart.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to master it. I'm still like working on it, but it's one of my favorite platforms, and I would spend hours getting stuck down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
I recently, and it's on its way. I recently bought a rug tufting gun because I saw it on TikTok, which is basically, I don't know if you've ever seen people make carpets by hand,
Yes.
like their little hook. So rug tufting gun does that, but like a machine gun, like,
I just saw somebody post it on
oh,
Facebook.
oh my
I
gosh.
didn't
So
know
yeah,
it
I ordered
existed.
one. I ordered one. It's on its way. Like, you can only get them from China right now, and so it won't be here till March. But can you imagine, like, custom rugs and like with the
Yeah.
logo on it, or even just like crazy pictures of stuff or crazy designs. Crosby wants to see if he can hook the carpet tufting done up to the plasma cutter so that we can program the design in, and it can just like,
Right.
I don't even have to hold it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're pretty excited.
I love the videos watching him cutting
Yeah.
all the different things. I mean, it's your social media platforms are worth it alone just for the fascination of how the
Thank
things are done.
you.
I absolutely love watching them.
Thank you. The progression of that has been pretty natural because we're just trying to find out like what works for us and what people like to see and what we have time to do. So when COVID first started, we were out of work for 3 months. We spent a lot of time just working on our house during that time, but
Mhm.
also perfecting how we were going to rebrand. We need to stay relevant.
Right.
People needed to remember who we were because we couldn't work. I mean, we technically could have worked, but I'm an elected official. And if I worked through the pandemic shutdown,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I would have never heard the end of it.
Right.
So we played it safe and we stayed home. We worked on our house, but we took videos of us working on our house, like applying our skills to working on the house. And that's the first videos that we put on TikTok were of those like videos of us working on our house. And then
Okay.
we were like, oh, oh, this is amazing. So it sort of just took off from there.
Okay. All right. I love that.
Yeah.
I honestly, Kim, I could talk to you for the rest of the afternoon, but I don't want to keep you when you've been so generous with your time. And there are a lot of questions that I just didn't get to ask, and that's okay too, because your story is just fascinating.
Oh,
But I would love to ask you, what do you do extremely well?
what do I do extremely well? Wing back chairs.
Okay.
Those are my expertise, and it was, like, the first real piece of furniture that I made and sold. I also do pattern matching really well now, and I didn't even know that was a thing when I first it
Okay.
probably took me a year and a half before I considered pattern matching at all. Like,
Okay.
I didn't even think about it, I never even seen an example of it, so I wouldn't have even known. I taught myself everything that I know,
Okay.
because there's nobody in the area who will teach me, like, how to do it. So,
Okay.
wingbacks and pattern matching, I really love to do, and then social media, of course, I
Okay. And you're
would
really good at that.
say.
What do you not do so well?
Box cushions. Oh my gosh, I hate them so much.
Isn't it
Uh
funny how we all have something that we just don't like to do?
I mean, I end up getting it right, but I swear, like, every box cushion I touch is just like, "Okay, how do we do this again?" I haven't do it for 6
I
years.
blocked it out since the last time I did it.
They
How do
all
I do
come
it?
out they all come out really well.
Blis
Cynthia,
Bliscacek.
yeah. So I watch her videos every time before I sit down to do another box cushion, I will sit down and watch her video. She gives me a lot of confidence, and not only that, she explains it in a way that I can understand, and it's not real technical termy, and it's more of like teaching you the fundamental of why she's doing it the way she's
Okay.
doing it, and when I finish my box cushions, they look really good. They look really great, but I struggle with it every single time.
Okay.
Every single time.
I appreciate how much you've shared about what some of your struggles have been, because I think that sometimes, especially when someone is as great on social media as you are, people only see the good stuff and they think, oh, they're just killing it. Look at this, look at this, look at this. And they
Yeah.
don't know everything that goes behind it. So I appreciate that you've been so vulnerable about
Yeah,
all of that and shared that with people.
thank you.
I I'm going to ask the next question. I would have expected the answer to be that you started a roller derby, but we already know that about you. What about you would surprise people?
I'm on city council. I'm an elected
I
official.
have to agree. That surprised
I
me
think
when you
that's
said that.
surprising. I think
Yes.
that's surprising to people. If you go to our city website and you look at the city council page, it's like 6 members in like black or blue blazers, and then my picture is like a fluorescent pink shirt, and I have electric blue hair. I think that's probably the most surprising thing. I won my election by just 3 votes, and I won it. I only campaigned using social media. So I didn't do the
Wow.
door and I didn't do the mailers. One, because I don't have time. Like I did not have time to walk out of my shop and go
Hmm.
door to door because that takes a considerable amount of time. Our city's 7 square miles and we have 30,000 residents, and there was just no way I was going to reach them. But I did know that our 2 largest city forums, one of them has over 6,000 people in it, one of them has over 5,000, and our voter base is the amount of people who vote in our city, we have 20,000 registered voters, less than 3,000 of them vote regularly. So I knew I could
Wow.
reach a larger voter base on social media than I could going door to door. I was
Right.
never going to reach 6,000 people going door to door, but I
Right.
could reach 6,000 people on social media. And so that's what I did. So I won my election by 3 votes, and they were like, that can't be right. So they did a recount, and I won that too. And I posted the whole thing live on social media as it was happening. Like, if I would have lost the recount, like, everyone would have saw it, my reaction to that live on
As it
social media.
happened, right.
And when it happened, I was like, like, I was just like, oh my gosh, I got one. And I'm cussing, of course, too. Like, holy shit, I won. So, and now in my city, which we thought originally was primarily conservative, actually leans more liberal and has more families with and without children moving into it every single day. Now everybody knows who I am. And not a lot of people know who other members of city council are because they are not prevalent on social media. You can't
Right.
see them all the
They're
time. They
not
don't.
visible.
Yeah. And so when people have questions about the city, they typically come to me. I
Mhm.
have to Google a lot of stuff because it's my first year in. I'm not like familiar. I did spend a year going to city council meetings to make sure that I could fit it into my schedule.
Okay,
And
that
the
was one
reason
of
why
my
I did it,
questions.
yeah, the reason why I did it was working as a business in the city. The city itself has so many resources that nobody would know because you have to physically go in there and ask what they are.
Okay.
Even though they're available on the website, they're too hard to find. You call in and ask, and they're too busy to talk to you. So it was just like, how do I make the city more accessible to small businesses, and how do I make small business more accessible in the city? That was my biggest goal. I just really wanted to help more people like me who are just like, I don't know what to do. This guy's
Right.
trying to sue me, and I'm just like he doesn't even seem like a legitimate business owner. Like, what is happening? So I wanted to fix that.
And you really walk the walk. Let me tell you, that's really
Thank you.
throwing yourself into it, Kymm.
And a lot has changed in the past year in terms of small business and even growth in the DBA. I'm working on a group with my friend Quinn Wright. He runs a group called Trailblazer Society. The Chamber of Commerce in our area is terrible. They don't do anything for you. You get a ribbon cutting and that's about it. But they
Okay.
don't like promote you. They don't even keep a database like they're supposed to. So Trailblazer Society looks to remedy that. So we're building relationships with small businesses in the area, taking videos about their stories and how they got here, celebrating them regularly, and making sure people know who they are.
Okay. I love that. I love that. So
Thanks.
I will post all of your social media platforms in the show notes, but if you can just quickly tell people where would they be able to find you?
Sure. You can find us anywhere on social media at Clark's Fabrication, all one word.
Okay. And as I said, I'll put links to everything.
Yeah, we're not on Twitter.
Okay.
Uh, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You'll
Okay.
find us there.
Okay. So my final question for you, Kymm, is what advice would you have for someone? We're not in exactly the same industry, but people who are upholsterers and seamstresses and small business owners listen to this podcast. What advice would you give to someone who's new or to someone who's been in business for a little while?
I think that advice would probably be the same one. Continually practice and work on your professional development. You are never ever done learning about what it is that you do, ever. And if you think you're really great at it, think of ways that you can get better because someone else is going to be out there learning the next best thing. And if you can't keep up with that, you're going to fall behind.
Okay.
So that continually work on your professional development and don't give up. Price your things accordingly. Was when you're first starting out of your garage, you can do $200-300 chairs. You don't have an overhead. But when you move, you need to move that expectation. So we started off when we were working from our house, we were like, how much money do we have to make to pay our bills every day? To quit our job, how much money do you have to make? And that was $156 a day, which holy cow, I wish I had that life again. But now we have to each make $80 an hour, at least 8 hours a day to keep the roof over our head. So it's a whole different ball game than it was back when we were working from our garage. And you have to know what that growth projection looks like. And you don't have to be good like necessarily at math or anything, but you have to be aware that your policies, practices, and prices have to change with your growth and with your expertise.
Right.
Because if you don't, you're undercutting the next one person growing out of their garage, which is not your right to do. And you're undercutting the other businesses out there who have worked really, really hard to get where it is that they are.
Mhm.
And I didn't always have appreciation for that. I was just like, how do I get them more business? And we used
I
to
think
take
most of us felt that way.
every job that came our way. And now we'd be like, no, we don't do that anymore.
Right,
Sorry.
right.
We
But
used to-
here's
when we
somebody
drop
who
off
will.
people's-
Yeah.
When we drop off people's furniture, they used to ask us to like move their washer and dryer up from their basement or screw something in because their husband didn't own a drill. And we used to do that. Like we
Yeah.
used to do that. Don't do that.
Yeah,
You
I
need to
agree with you.
set a precedent early on that you don't do that. That's the other piece of advice.
I love that. Kymm, thank you so much for your time today. I
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much.
it. It's been so nice getting to know you.
This was a lot of fun. You're really easy to talk to too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.